Hello everybody, my name is Adam and welcome back to Adam Tryon Reviews. Now, normally my videos are about Transformers, because that's my main idea whenever it comes to toys and whatnot. But recently I've gotten into Marvel Legends and I finally collected a single wave. I got the supervillain Zemnu wave. So I thought, why not review that plus Thanos? Because just why not throw Thanos in there? He is like a big supervillain. He may not, I don't think he was part of that wave, but like, he's a supervillain. He's a huge supervillain too. So he fits in. So without further ado, let's get into the reviews and start off with a character I'm not a huge fan of. And I don't mean character, I mean more like, because I don't know a lot of these characters on the top of my head. Like, I don't know who this is. Like, I don't know if he's important. I don't know if anything. His design is pretty cool. I can say that. Like, personally, I like his design. It reminds me of like a beekeeper, which I got a feeling that's what they were going for with all the hive areas and all that. Let's see if we can get more light on him. There we go. Coming closer, there's the hive area right here. He has his belt and right here, which I think is like a data pad, which makes sense considering he is the AIM Scientist Supreme. I probably should have said his name before, but that's his name, AIM Scientist Supreme. The legs, I love like the shin design. I don't know if it's been on anything else off the top of my head, but it's kind of cool. The head is essentially just a like a trapezoid, rounded trapezoid shape. I guess more of a cylinder actually, but it has a pretty good range of motion. Like, it can go pretty far up, pretty far down. It can go like all the way around. It's pretty good. Take off his accessory, get him standing real quick. This is his data pad. There's nothing really much on it. It's just like a clear blue area with painted gray handle thing. It's okay. But more on the articulation. His arm can come out this far and can go down. He has a bicep swivel. Arm has 2 points of movement, one right here, which is the easiest to do, and then one even higher. So he has a double elbow. He has a wrist that can bend inward and outward. He has a ab crunch, which also can go side to side and back. It can also act as a waist swivel, even though he also, I believe, no, I'm wrong, he does not have a waist swivel. His leg can go that far back, can go that far forward. He has a thigh rotation. He has bend at the knee here and a bend at the knee here, which gets him a double bend, a little bit over 90 degrees. He has an ankle pivot, which can be really, really good. He has an ankle swivel, and his foot can go up, forward, and back. So, in all, he has some really good posability, in my opinion, but it's just for a character that I don't really think of as having a large amount of posability. When I think of a scientist, I think of a person looking at a data pad like this. Not really a more stoic, more no personality whenever it comes to that, which may be his character. I don't know. I don't know really what character this is supposed to be. I think the only way that I even know AIM itself is from the Marvel Avengers game. So that's the only tie-in I have for it. But it's overall a decent figure, and I would recommend picking it up, especially if you want the Zemnu Wave. Other than this datapad, though, he comes with no accessories. So let's set him right there. Let's go with Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is a character that I have some familiarity with, actually. I really liked the cartoon X-Men show, and she was in there for a couple of episodes, I think. From what I know, she's basically kind of like Wolverine, except her nails are, instead of like claws, are coated with adamantium. And I think there's like adamantium tech stuff right here. It's overall a pretty well designed figure, and this is like great for this figure because this is the pose that I want her in, and I really like this design, but it does have its flaws. There is no accessories at all. This is only the figure and the Build-A-Figure piece that it comes with, but if it's a good figure, it works. And overall, I do like it better than AIM Scientist Supreme. Her posability is, I don't think, as good as AIM Scientist, but it's a much better figure in my opinion. She has she has a joint at the head which can allow her to look that far down and that far up. It can go side to side. Her hair, due to like how short it is, doesn't really get in the way of posability, so that's pretty good. And it's kind of thin, so it can bend a little bit. Her arm comes out this far, can go down all the way. She has one bend instead of a double bend at the elbow, and her wrist also does swivel, and it can like hinge and all that, but it, due to it being so thin, I don't really like it to, because I'm worried that like it'll stress the plastic. But this here, this side's a little better. It can go up and down. She has a waist swivel, which also acts as a pivot and a crunch. Pretty good crunch back, not so great forward. Legs go back that far, all the way forward that far. She has a double bend at the knee, which it's a little bit stiff, this one on my copy. And then she also has an ankle swivel, and it can go forward and backward. So overall, not better posability than AIM Scientist, but she also has a thigh swivel and bicep swivel. I can't believe I forgot those two. Overall, not better posability than Aim Scientist Supreme, but I do think overall it's a better figure, and I personally have more of a connection to the character thanks to having watched the X-Men cartoon whenever I was younger. Let's see if I can get this posed back to the way I had her. There we go. All look good? Yeah, that looks good. Move her a little bit forward. Sorry, I'm taking so long to pose her. Next, let's do the hood. Now, the hood it's a little bit weird. It's just too big. Like, it's too big for him. Like, I understand the hood needs to be big, but just don't make the, like, cape so big. And it comes with this on already, but this is one accessory to me. It comes with 2 guns and 2 blast effects. The blast effects are terrible. I don't understand how they got through the designing stage. They look a little weird. And then posability, though, not too bad without this on. He can look up that far. He can look down that far. He has a ab crunch right here, which actually goes really well. It can go back a little bit though, but not the best. His arms can come out that far and come down that far. He has a bicep swivel. Oh, blast effect part terribly made. Bicep swivel. He has a double bend at the elbow, but it's kind of stiff. And he has his wrist can move it forward and back and also swivel. I'll try and get this blast effect piece back on. He has a waist swivel. He has his leg is kind of stiff. Can go back that far, forward that far. Actually, can go a little bit more. He has a thigh rotation, and he has a double bend, also kind of stiff. The knee. He has a ankle pivot, and it can move forward and backward, granted not by much, but it can. Again, this does hinder articulation, so if you want to pose him, I recommend posing him and then putting the cowl on. Like that. Also, with this character, kind of like Game Scientist Supreme, I have no affinity for him. I have no idea what he does or whatever, but it's overall the worst so far, but it's not terrible. The hood will probably be a bummer, but it's fine. It's bearable. You can probably get over it pretty soon. Yeah, that's the hood. He also doesn't want to stand properly. That's the best I can get, and he's leaning back on it. It's good that it's kind of like a cape, because the shoes that he has are terrible. Next, let's take a look at Arcade. Arcade is a figure that, again, no idea who he is. I know he's an X-Men villain. That's really all I know. But the figure itself is great. I really like it. Like, the head looks amazing. And the alternate head, the only other accessory that he comes with other than a Build-A-Figure piece, is also really good. It reminds me more of the what's his name? He reminds me of Lex Luthor from Batman v Superman, though. Jesse Eisenberg. I think that's who it is. I'm probably wrong, but that's what this head reminds me of. And because of that, if like I were to think of who would play Arcade, Jesse Eisenberg probably would be my choice. Terrible in Batman v Superman, though. That's his extra thing. He also has a cane. No idea if like this is something kind of like I can't remember anything. There's a DC character that was in Teen Titans, and he basically could control TVs or something, and he had a remote that basically had his powers in it. I don't know if that's something like the cane does, or if he has his own powers separate from the cane and he just carries around a cane, but it's what it is. So posability is also, posability on Marvel Legends is just pretty good in general. He can look up that far and down that far. His arms can go out that far. He has a bicep swivel. He has a double bend at the arm, which gets him the best bend at the moment that we've seen. And his wrists can go in and out, and they do swivel. And his arms, his shoulders, all of their shoulders do rotate a full 360. He has a waist swivel. I don't think he has an ab crunch. If he does, it's really hindered by the jacket or whatever. He has a thigh swivel. His leg can go out that far, and the jacket does move out of the way, which I like. I like the fact that it can. His legs also spread. I probably should have done something. They all do that as well. The hood. And I don't want to do the other ones, but they all have their legs can spread. He has a double bend at the knee, like everyone else, which also gets him the best bend that we've seen so far. He has a ankle pivot, and his foot can go forward and back. Overall, Arcade, really good figure. Recommend that you do pick him up. Really, at the moment, definite pickup, definite pickup. If you're a completionist, maybe, and kind of also the same, but more leaning closer to definite pickup. So completionist, but also really good. Oh. And that's what I meant about the hood. Terrible at standing. Next, let's take a look at Dormammu. Now, again, never read a single Doctor Strange comic, but I do know Dormammu from the movie, which I know was nowhere near close to Dormammu, because look at this. This is just so much better. The whole design, everything. I like it. But Dormammu is from a different dimension, I want to say. Kind of reminds me of Ghost Rider with the whole flames thing. Which, don't know if that triggers Marvel fans. I like the Marvel movies and I like collecting, but I'm not huge on lore of every single character. I don't know much. When it comes to stuff that I learn, I mostly learn it from YouTube and from channels like Comic Drake. But that's interesting for me, how different he was in the MCU. Now, Dormammu is based on a buck, I think that's what they're called, of a figure that we'll take a look at probably either next or second next. Dormammu is a Doctor Strange villain, from what I know, and he also has had another Marvel Legends figure, which I kind of want, but I have this one, so I'm happy with it. And posability is also kind of good. Straighten out his head can swivel, can look down that far and up that far, so not that great in that department. He has his arms are stiff. His arms can move out that far, down that far. He has a bicep swivel. He has a double bend at the elbow, which is pretty close to arcade. And his wrists do swivel and can move in and out. He has a ab crunch, which goes forward that far and back that far. He has a waist swivel. His leg can move out that far. Can also spread. He has a thigh swivel, a double bend at the knee. He has like a shin swivel. He has forward and backward at the feet and ankle pivot. So overall, he has the best posability yet. Beating Arcade, who just got it, but then just got beat. Dormammu is a great figure, and he doesn't come with too many accessories. Well, he actually does. He has a lot of accessories, really. He comes with a little crown area, which actually helps a lot from distinguishing his face, because right now you can't see it, but then whenever the face guard or something is added, you can kind of distinguish a face more. He comes with 2 fire effects, which I have on his arms. And he comes with alternate hands. He comes with 2 fisted hands. And he comes with 2 kind of grabbing hands. I personally like these hands that he comes with. They're kind of like open, menacing hands. The other ones are pretty good as well. Another definite pickup if you decide to get this wave, which I understand it's an old wave, but I just got them. I don't know. Next, Red Skull. Now this is the buck that Dormammu is based on. From what I can tell, he has all the joints and everything. So, first off, let's get accessories out of the way. Accessory-wise, he, I think, has the most out of the entire wave. There's his gun, which has a great little Hydra insignia. He has the Tesseract. I want to say that's correct. I don't know. He has a ribbon on his arm that has the Hydra logo, which isn't an accessory, but I always think that's a really cool detail whenever I look at him. His head is really cool. I prefer this one over the alternate head, which I think just has too much teeth. It's too smiley. It reminds me of Skeletor from He-Man. He also comes with 4 alternate hands. So he has a fisted hand. He actually has 2 fisted hands. And he comes with 2 open hands, like Dormammu. Now, the hands that I have on here are an open hand. I think they're the exact same ones that I have right now on Dormammu. And a gun holding hand, which has a different joint than most of these other hands. Which, actually, this is another one of the hands that can also hold the Tesseract. And this is another gun holding hand. I was mistaken. So, difference between normal hands and these hands. The joint will normally be facing the palm, so the hand can go like this. With this hand, I don't know if this is like a new thing that they've added for this wave, but it moves sideways. Just something interesting I noticed. And I prefer the normal hand way, but it's cool that we have the variety for guns. Posability wise, he kind of is mostly the same, just like Dormammu, but kind of better in some departments. Head can look down that far and up that far. Arm can move out. He has a bicep swivel, a double bend at the elbow, which I don't need to bend since it's already double bent. Like I said, he has the joint at the hand for his gun, and it also can swivel. He has an ab crunch, which goes down that far and back that far. He has a waist swivel. He has a leg spread. His legs can go forward that far. And he has a thigh swivel. He also has a double bend at the knee, which is super tight. which gets us the best so far. So now he is definitely past Dormammu. And he has a shin swivel. And his foot goes forward and back and also pivots. So, again, kind of like Dormammu took from Arcade, Red Skull took from Dormammu. Red Skull is now, so far, from what we've looked at, the one with the best articulation. And the most accessories. Red Skull is really, really good in this wave, and this is a #1 must-get pickup in this wave. In my opinion, you don't really need one, but if you're a Marvel collector and you like Red Skull, this is like the best, I think the only 616 version that we have. Finally, before we get to the Build-A-Figure and Thanos, God Doom. Now, God Doom, accessory-wise, real quick, just get it out of the way, comes with 2 kind of like magic hands, which remind me of the Shriek hands that I have on her, and a gun hand, which at first I didn't know why he needed this. I didn't know he had a gun, but he actually comes with a holstered Walther P38, which kind of a cool detail. I didn't even notice that until 2 days after I got him. He also comes with the skull of Thanos, which is a nice reference to Secret Wars, where he ripped out the skull of Thanos. So it's a pretty cool ideas, and other than that little knowledge I have of him, no idea who he is. I know he's Victor Von Doom. I know he's like an even more powerful Doctor Doom or whatever, but I don't know too much about God Doom himself. Whenever it comes to articulation, he has a swivel. He can look up that far and down that far. He has, his arm can move out that far. He has a bicep swivel. He has a double bend at the elbow, which doesn't get too much. His wrist can move in and out, and it swivels. He has a waist swivel above what the actual waist would be, which also acts as an ab crunch, which goes down that far and back that far, and slight pivot. Not great. His leg can move out that far thanks to the skirt moving out of the way. He has a double bend, which isn't the best, but it's really, really good compared to some of the others in the wave. He has a foot swivel, and his foot can go back and forward, and he also has a pivot. Straighten out this Thanos head or skull. And he's also a really good pickup. I would recommend that you get him. Great design. I love the white. I love the belt. I love all of it. Before we get into the Build-A-Figure, though, let's actually talk about designs. I love the metallic, shiny silver. I love the gloves that have the wrinkles in them. Again, love this holstered Walther P38, which you can actually get the holster off and take out. And it also does snap back in. And I love love all the rivets and details on his legs and feet. It's such a good design. Also, the eyes and like in the mask, you can see like part of his flesh, like his actual face, which cool design as well. So overall, really good. I talked about Red Skull, but let's also talk about the head real quick. I love the washing they did on the head. It's just great. But other than that, it's kind of like a plain green and brown buck. Dormammu now has this amazing head sculpt and then this amazing, just perfect shoulder, like chest design that's added onto him, and the spikes on his legs and the yellow belt, it all adds to make a really, really good figure. The hood, well, without the hood, it's kind of boring. So it's kind of like just a civilian with a hood. Now, the hood is actually really cool. It reminds me of Doctor Strange's, like, cloak or cape. I think it's a cape, not a cloak. And it's pretty cool. I like the gold right here and all that. Other than that, though, it's kind of a boring figure, but whenever you add them together, it does kind of look pretty cool. So, overall, decent figure. Arcade. Love the bow tie. They fell. Again, Hood doesn't have the best shoes. Stay there. Okay, Hood's just gonna stay down. The cane is a really nice touch. The kept hair is also really cool, especially whenever you also have a kind of messed up hair, which, again, clean hair just looks amazing for this suit version. The tie is really cool. It doesn't really fit in with the whole design, but I like that. It's something to draw your attention away. The shoes, he has these really, really big, like, soles, because probably he's a short dude, and he needs that to add height. And it's just really cool. Let's see if we can, there we go. Like, he has these high top shoes, and they're pretty cool. And now, Red Skull probably won't stand. There we go. Elektra. I talked about her a little bit, but this cap is pretty cool. The basic, like, design of her clothes is also really cool. The ribbons on her arms is nice, and it's overall a pretty cool design, which I really like, especially from the cartoon. And I talked about Beekeeper, or Aim Scientist Supreme. But overall, pretty good. Let's get these guys stood up, and the hood, if I can actually get them to stand. That's the problem with some of them, like, I have them in poses and then like they'll stand fine, but once you get them out and then try and get them back in, it's a mess. Final two, let's talk about Thanos. Thanos is a big, chunky guy. Like, amazing. I love this design much more than I did the Endgame and Infinity War design, and I loved those. But I've always loved this design more. The gauntlet and all of the Infinity Stones just being there is amazing. Having him, like, gawk at the fact, or really like the fact that he actually has all, 6 Infinity Stones, is what I like. A lot of people may go for the snapped hands look, which you can do, but I personally think that's kind of generic, especially since I see a lot of people do that, and Thanos is he has all of these options. He has even a fist where he doesn't have any of the Infinity Stones yet. None of them were there, which is early on Thanos as well. And then there is this old Thanos head, which no idea about it. It's something that they threw in that is pretty cool, but I have no idea anything about it. But something I think is really cool, which isn't really an accessory, is the backdrop. Oh, it's gonna fall back. Having Thanos standing in front of his throne is just really cool to me. It's the only backdrop I've ever kept. I've never kept any Transformers one. I've kept some Transformers boxes that have backdrops, but I've never kept only the backdrop. And this is just a great backdrop. I love this backdrop. Can I say backdrop any more times? Probably. So let's get this out of the way. Overall, great figure, amazing design, the gold, the blue, the amazing face, the black and sky blue eyes are just so different. They look great. This is my favorite Marvel Legend that I have, in case you can't tell because I'm gawking over it so much. And it's just really good. His posability, he can look up that far, down that far, so he doesn't have the best whenever it comes to head movement. But he has what I need. His arm can move out that far. He has a bicep swivel, which is kind of tight. He has one bend at the elbow, which gets, I think it gets that far. He has his wrist can move out and in and swivel. He has an ab crunch, which can go back that far and forward that far. He has a waist swivel, which does get hindered by the belt, but you can get a certain extent before it does. He has a leg that can go that far out, that far back. He has a thigh swivel. He has a double bend at the knee. he has a angle pivot and forward and back. So he doesn't have the best posability compared to all these, but whenever it comes to characters of his size, don't really expect them to get really dynamic poses. Like basic stances and maybe their arms out to the side and menacing is the most that I see. Thanos is the one that I enjoy the most, that I can put him into this kind of bland but also really dynamic pose, and I'm happy with him. He is amazing, definite recommendation. Although he is not part of this wave, he's a separate, by himself figure. And finally, the big thing, the big part of this wave, Xemnu. Xemnu, I have really no idea what he is or all that. All I know is that he's a Hulk and She-Hulk and possibly a Fantastic Four villain. I don't know, but I know he's a Hulk and She-Hulk villain. His design is pretty cool if you like look at it, but just from afar it's kind of boring. He has a belt, which is pretty cool. His hand has some silver and red detail, and his head actually has a metal scalp. Other than that, he's kind of like an abominable snowman design, which is fine. Probably what he looks like, no idea, never read a comic that he's in. But posability is kind of limited. You can look that far to the side, that far, can look that far down and that far up. Head has kind of bad. He has an ab crunch, but it also doesn't do much. Like, that's how far it goes back, that's how far it goes forward. But he does have a swivel at the waist. His arm can go out that far, and even more actually. And even more than that. He has a bicep swivel, and he has one bend at the arm that goes that far. Probably like a 80-degree angle. His wrist can move in and out, and it can swivel. He has a spread. His leg can go forward and a little bit back. He has a swivel, and he has a double bend at the knee. He has a slight pivot, and it can go forward and back slightly. So he doesn't have great posability, and like I was saying with Thanos, this is really the most that I expect from these big, chunky figures. I don't expect great posability or anything, because there's not much you can get from certain designs. But it's a pretty cool design. And that is the entirety of the Xemnu wave. Ranking-wise, if I had to rank, Thanos would be up front. But he's not part of the wave. So, if in my logic he is, but he would be number one. But he can't. So, who is number one? Well, Red Skull. Red Skull is such an amazing figure. Parts of him are kind of bland, and he's not that cool design-wise. But the amount of accessories and his posability being so good, and personally, I have a better affinity with him than most of these other characters. So he is my number one favorite choice. Number two, Dormammu. Dormammu has my favorite design out of all of these. But because the posability gets in the way and he doesn't have as many accessories, he kind of falls a little bit short. But he's also a really good figure, so I definitely recommend picking him up. Next, God Doom. God Doom is a really cool design, and although personally I do enjoy the green a little more, it's still a great figure. The accessories that he come with are great. Well, the accessory that he comes with, other than his hands, is a great nod to the comic he was in, the Secret Wars comic, and it's a pretty cool design. Let's get these out of the way so there's some more room. Next, Arcade. I have no affinity for the character, but I also really like... the design's kind of bland as well. But just the look of the character, not the design, the look of the figure, he's just super cool. Posability was really, really good for not having a ab crunch like most of the other ones, and it was surprisingly good. Fifth would have to be Lady Deathstrike. Lady Deathstrike is probably the second most affiliated character with me, only behind Red Skull. She didn't come with any accessories, and her posability is kind of subpar, but she's a really cool design, and my affinity and bias to knowing the character is why she is higher than a couple of the other ones. Next, Zemnu. Zemnu is cool in design for what there is, and although the posability is kind of limited, I can't fault him on that, considering how big he is and the fact that I said before, I don't expect a great posability from these guys. They're big, chunky guys. I expect them to have small poses, but not anything too grand. Next, the Hood. This whole review, I've been kind of ragging on the fact that he can barely stand due to his shoes, and sure, the Hood, making him the Hood, is the main problem with the figure, but he just looks pretty good on a shelf, and whenever I get my figure stands, he's gonna be fine, or he's gonna be leaping or something, so the Hood being in the way won't be a problem. It's just these dumb blast effects that kind of make me not like the figure as much. And then, finally, AIM Scientist Supreme. Now, like I said, no affinity for the character, so a little bias there, and the fact that I don't know him. And also the fact that I can't really know the character to pose them, but the design isn't bad. It's overall a decent design, and it's a worthy pickup. Overall, all of these figures are a worthy pickup. And even the worst in the line, which objectively is the Hood, but in my opinion is AIM Scientist Supreme, they at least scored C or D. Most likely a C. So they're definitely a pickup with these two being S tier, right here being A, B for Zemnu, and then C for these two. It's overall a good wave, worthy pickup, definitely recommend it. But out of all of these, Thanos should be number one. Get Thanos.